Namaskar, this is Sai Sudhir from Mahatma Gandhi National Council of Rural Education. Welcome to the lecture series on rural supply chain management. In the last video, we discussed on the impact of globalization on supply chain management. In this video, we are going to discuss on measuring productivity in supply chain management practices. So, after watching this video, you will be able to understand what is productivity, how to measure productivity, what are the various types of measuring productivity, misconceptions about productivity, and the benefits involved in productivity. So, let us start about this. Productivity is basically the relationship between output and input in the production process. We are using different products every day. Every product is measured, whether it is good product or bad product, on various components, various elements. So, productivity is basically assessed whether the outcome of the production process is effective or not, how far it is effective, and what is the parameter for that, what are the various parameters used in that. That we are going to discuss today especially. Productivity is basically defined as the efficient use of resources. We have various resources such as capital resources, labor resources, land, materials, energy, information. In the production process, whether it is a goods or a kind of service, it is basically defined as the relationship between the results and the time it takes to accomplish the results. Time is often a good denominator because it is beyond human control. Higher productivity can be accomplished when the same amount of resources or the kind of higher output in terms of volume and quality is attained for the same input. This is basically stated as productivity is output by input. Productivity is the measure of effectiveness of the use of resources to produce goods and services. So, how to improve productivity? What are the ways in which we can use the productivity improvement? So, how we can increase the output without changing the input? Here we are using two parameters, one is input and output. We are trying to define productivity by using these two important terms called as input and output. So, here we are trying to measure the productivity basing on how we can increase the output without changing any inputs, without changing any input which we are using in the production process. Productivity is basically a comparative tool for managers, industrial engineers, economists, and of course politicians as well. It basically compares the production at different levels of economic system, whether it is individual level, organizational level, sectoral level or national level, with the resources that we are consuming there. International Labour Organization, which has promoted an advanced view of productivity, which refers to the effective and efficient utilization of resources. Here we are using two important things called as efficiency and effectiveness in utilizing the resources. What is usage of resources in efficient way or effective way? We have defined efficiency as using the resources in a right way and effectiveness as using the right kind of resources. So, whenever we are trying to produce a product, we have to use these two important components, one is effectiveness and efficiency. So, we have to choose the right resource, the right kind of resource. Choosing the right kind of resource is about effectiveness. Using the resource in a right way is about efficiency. So basically in productivity we are trying to define these parameters in two ways, inputs and outputs, as we already discussed. So here when we are talking about resources, whether it is capital resource, labor resource, market based resources, energy, information, whatever it is in addition to labor. However, we are trying to utilize these resources in an effective and efficient way to enhance the productivity. And while measuring productivity also, this components plays a very important role. But when we are looking it as a comparative tool, which is for managers, as industrial engineers, or as an economist, as a politician, how they are looking at it, that is different. Because productivity compares the production at different levels of the economic system, as we already discussed it. Because when we are seeing it as an individual perspective, organizational perspective, or a sectoral perspective, or a national perspective. So what is the way in which we are viewing that aspect and how we are trying to compare it, that varies. And of course there are various misunderstandings about productivity as well, which we call it as some misconceptions, maybe some myths or misunderstandings of productivity. So let's talk about those misconceptions of productivity. First of all, productivity is not only labor efficiency or a labor productivity. We are not only defining or judging productivity based on the labor factor. There are different other factors as well. So although labor productivity is still a useful policy making data, but still we have different areas to assess productivity. One misconception where we are considering that productivity means only we are assessing the labor factor. No, it is not that. The second misconception which we are thinking about productivity is to judge the performance of productivity simply or only by output. As we discussed, two important parameters in productivity, one is input and output. But it is not that we are judging the performance only by output. Increase in productivity is varied. Increase in productivity is varied in different ways. The costs have risen. For example, costs may be raised. So utilizing the resources based on the cost. So how we can utilize? And there is also a confusion between productivity and profitability. Is productivity and profitability both are the same? No. Profit can be basically obtained through the recovery of price, even though productivity may have gone down. High productivity does not always go with profit, high profit, since the goods which we are producing, which we are saying that as efficiently produced and which are not necessarily in demand. So we are producing high quality of goods, but they are not having demand in the market. Then there is no use of it. And one more misunderstanding we are talking about here is also confusing with the term called as efficiency. Productivity and efficiency both are the same. No, they are not the same. Efficiency is about whether we are using the right kind of resources in a right way or not. What is right here? Right quantity, right way of quality, right proportionate means. So all such aspects plays a right kind of approach here. So producing high quality goods within the less possible time is also considered in terms of efficiency. And one more way is that productivity is always to believe like it is always cost cutting. Cost cutting improves productivity. Always cost cutting improves productivity. Does it mean that? Whether we reduce the cost, whether we utilize the resources in a right way. So it should be done indiscriminately. Whatever it is, we have to do it indiscriminately in the productivity aspect. And there is one more myth called as productivity causes damages. productivity causes damages, whereas it is applied only for production. Productivity is relevant to any kind of organization, any kind of system, including services and of course information as well. But and also the productivity mechanisms can be implied in the rural areas or the rural aspects, rural sectors also. So we have to understand these things, like productivity is not only labor efficiency or labor productivity. Productivity cannot be judged only by output. There is a confusion between productivity and profitability. So both are different, whereas we also have a difference with efficiency, and to believe that the cost cutting always improves productivity. No, not like that. And also productivity can be applied to production only. No, productivity can be applied to any other aspect. And next we are going to talk on measuring productivity. How to measure productivity? Is there any means to measure productivity? The concept of this productivity is basically linked with the quality of output and input, and of course the process itself. Quality of output, input and the process. So we are using three important elements here: input, process, output. So whatever the inputs we are trying to provide, what is the process we are trying to do here, what is the output we are trying to extract from here, these three elements plays a very important role in the process of productivity. Basically, the role of a manager, especially in the rural sectors, which is expected to be high, because generally speaking productivity could be considered as a comprehensive measure of how organizations satisfy the objectives, efficiency, effectiveness and comparability. So here we are using four important areas in measuring productivity. In terms of objectives, first we have to define our objectives, why we are measuring the productivity. So what is the degree that which they have to achieve? What is its benchmark? This has to perform up to this level of extent. So what is that we are expecting? That is to be decided. Whereas efficiency, so what is the expectation we have towards efficiency of the resources? And effectiveness also, whether we are using the right kind of resources or not. How much we have to produce, how much we are producing, what is our expectation, and the comparability. So we cannot compare between 1 lakh product and 10 lakhs product. The input that we are providing here and the output that we are expecting, that should be having a match. So with what we are trying to compare, that is also important here in terms of productivity. We cannot compare a 10 rupees pen with a 1000 rupees pen. Both are different. It is not only in terms of the price, it is in terms of the inputs provided there, in terms of the process involved there, in terms of the outputs extracted from that. So while measuring productivity, we have to also satisfy these four components, such as what is our objective in this, what is the efficiency level, what is the effectiveness in this context, and what is the comparability and what aspects we have to compare here. These components we have to focus. And productivity basically measures by the way of single factor and multi-factor. We have two important aspects here. One is productivity is based on single factor, measured based on single factor or multi-factor. It is basically a continuing concern for all the countries, not only for one country. Two important productivity measures we are talking now, which are being practiced by the managers or the policy makers. In the single factor productivity, where for example if we take the labor hours or capital employed is considered, this is basically considered as a partial factor measure of productivity, because we are not taking all the factors involved in productivity here. There are many factors involved in assessing the performance, but we are not only defining or we are not only basing on one particular factor. That is why this is called as a partial factor, where we have to take different factors also into consideration, but when we are measuring productivity based on a single factor, that is considered to be a single factor of productivity. So, for example, here when we take only the labor hours or the capital involved in this, that is one factor. Whereas in a multi-factor productivity, which means to consider more factors than a single factor, in that multi-factor productivity, for example, we may take both labor as well as the capital employed here in the productivity process. So, here we are trying to consider different factors. For example, like sugarcane juice that is produced divided by the labor hours plus total kilograms of sugarcane plus overheads. So, we are using different factors here to assess the productivity. The input factors must be different, like both output and inputs are considered in rupees in the same way here, because whenever we are considering this productivity, especially in the multi-factor, we have to see that what kind of factors we are considering here. As we have taken an example of sugarcane, examples of liters, we are using the liters of sugarcane juice produced, liters of sugarcane juice produced divided by the labor hours, labor in terms of hours, plus kilograms of sugarcane juice crushed, sugarcane not juice, sugarcane. So, kilograms of sugarcane crushed plus the overheads involved. So, we are using different factors here, and the input factors which we are using and the output factors which we are considering in rupees. So, that is to be taken care. And next, when we are talking about the factors influencing the productivity. So, what factors basically influence the productivity, which includes, we have to focus on investment, because how much we are investing. As I told you earlier, the example of comparing a 10 rupees product with a 1000 rupees product, no, that is not same. So, what is the investment involved here? That is one important factor which we have to consider, as well as the resource availability, based on the availability of resources. As we know, in every kind of resource there are different quality of resources involved. So, which quality grade we are using in this production process, and the availability of resources for making that or producing that particular product. So, what sort of resource is available there? Likewise, the competency of the people in terms of the skill sets involved, skill sets of the people involved in the production process. At the same time, the innovation and technology component. So, what sort of innovation we are using here, what type of technology support we are taking here, that is also to be considered. And likewise, there are some regulatory based effects, mix of goods as well as services which are produced, and the kind of propensity to save versus spend. So, what we would like to save, what we would like to spend, and the quality and global competitiveness, these factors also we have to consider, because where we want to apply this, where this product is considered, what level of quality we are expecting from this, what is the outcome we are expecting, and what is the outcome we are arrived. So, these components we have to assess. For these we have to consider such factors. Whereas, when we talk about the productivity improvement, so one is we are talking about the measuring productivity. In one way we are talking about now improvement of this productivity, how we can enhance, how we can improve the productivity. So, what it is required, whether it is in rural areas or urban areas, whether it is for rural industries or urban grade industries. So, what sort of improvement mechanisms we have to take place, we have to follow. So, one is we have to focus on training of the employees. So, we are trying to enhance the skill set of the employees involved in the production process. Likewise, we are trying to motivate people who are involved in this. As we discussed, three important components: input, process, output. So, while providing inputs during the process and while extracting output, so what is the level of motivation we need to maintain, and also upgrading technology. We have to also see that what best kind of technology is fit into this, best fit technology. So we have to see that whether this technology is appropriate for this process or not, while providing inputs or while processing the things or while extracting the output, whether this technology is appropriate or not, that is also to be assessed. Likewise, when we talk about automation, so these days automation business processes are getting automated. So while making automation, while depending on this automation, whether this is right type of mechanism or right type of method for automation or not, whether this is to be done manually or automatically, that is to be decided first, because every process may be automated, but whether it is going to provide the outcomes in a better way or not, because we can consider some examples, or maybe an example like even we have automated painting kind of technology in the automobiles. There is a company called Royal Enfield, you all know that. Royal Enfield vehicles, still they are using the manual based painting on their tanks. Even still they are having the automated based technologies available, but still they are using the manual made. So what is the outcome they are extracting from that? Even it is man made or manual made, it is not deviating out of the process, out of the expectation. Whatever they are expected, they are coming out with that outcome. So we have to think on that, what type of improvement mechanisms we have to focus, whether it is appropriate at this point of time or not, whether we have to go with this change or not, whether this automation kind of technology to be incorporated here or not, and reducing waste, unnecessary kind of waste to be reduced. For that, how we have to manage waste, that is also to be considered, and also utilizing the resources in terms of enhancement of productivity while bringing better outcomes with the minimum inputs, or the without increasing the inputs, how we can enhance the output. In that case, utilizing the resources plays a very important role. So how the resources can be utilized in a rightful manner? So we have to look at it, how the resources can be utilized in a best possible manner, to the fullest extent, how we can utilize that. Likewise, reducing cost and providing some benefits and insurance to the people who are involved in this process, providing some incentives and bonuses to the people involved in this. This also helps the people or the company to enhance productivity out of this. Such areas we have to focus. And when we talk about the types, there are different types of productivity which we are trying to measure. So what are the various types of productivity? So we have 4 types of productivity which is mentioned here. One is labor based productivity, capital productivity, material productivity, and total factor productivity. So what is happening in these 4 types of productivity? Labor productivity is the ratio of output per person, whereas it measures the efficiency of the labor in the transformation of something into a product of higher value. So we are trying to measure it. How? For example, if a person is able to peel 20 kilograms of onion per hour, it represents the efficiency of that person. So labor productivity is assessed based on the competency of the person who is doing that particular job or that particular task. Whereas in the capital productivity, it is the ratio of output, which is the goods and services, to the input of physical capital. That means the capital invested over there. For example, a pot maker who is able to produce the value of pots worth rupees 10,000 with a capital investment of rupees 20,000. So this is based on that. What is the investment in terms of rupees and what is the output in terms of rupees? Whereas the material productivity, which talks about the output to the input of the material. So what is the material that is used, that is consumed in the production process? For example, a coir manufacturer who is able to produce 50 kilograms of coir by consuming 80 kilograms of raw coir fiber. He is consuming about some 80 kilograms of raw coir fiber and is able to produce 50 kilograms of coir. So, what is the productivity there in terms of material? Whereas total factor, in the fourth level we are talking about the total factor, which includes, it is not just by simple ratio of output to input, but also it is a measure that captures everything which is not only captured as a labor, capital or material. So, we are including every factor, each and every factor in terms of extracting or comparing the input to the output. And finally, when we are talking about the benefits of productivity, so is it beneficial? What benefits we have from this productivity by measuring this productivity? Basically, it helps to cut down the cost per unit and also thereby improves the profit, where we can see some equation as like profit is equal to total revenue minus total cost. This benefit can be also transferred to customers. Here, why we are talking about this productivity is, in the supply chain component we discussed in the beginning, like one is to enhance the value for the customer and to reduce the cost. By measuring the productivity of a product or a service or a kind of information, we are trying to enhance the productivity in one way, we are trying to also reduce the cost in the other way. And the gains also can be shared with the employees as well, people involved in this process as well, in terms of fringe benefits or maybe in terms of some kind of benefits or incentives or bonus, whatever it is. Likewise, we also can focus on export market opportunities as well from this productivity. So, whenever we have a better product with us, we can also focus on exporting that product to the other nations as well, whether it is a handicraft based products or toys or whatever the products we are using, especially handmade if we take. So, based on the productivity, we can also focus on exporting that product to the other nations. This will also help in generating more employment opportunities in the rural sectors as well, and also it will enhance the better living conditions and standards of people involved in this, and also helps in increasing the gross national product as well. So, it is definitely important to measure productivity. We have to see that it is not only just assessing about the output and based on the inputs, we are also looking at many factors here, whether it is a labor, capital, material, or when we are considering the total factors which involves here. This will basically help not only the customer, but also the employees, every stakeholder we can say, the manufacturer, supplier, and also the customer and the person who is acting as a distributor. In every element of supply chain also gets benefit out of this productivity measurement. So, this basically helps in enhancing the value of the product, value to the customer, reducing the cost of the product, providing benefits to the employees, and also benefit to each and every stakeholder. Thank you for watching this video. We will go with the next concepts in the next coming videos on rural supply chain management. Thank you. Namaskar.